You close your laptop. The task is unfinished, and somehow it follows you into the shower, into dinner, into bed, into 3 in the morning when your brain decides now is the perfect time to remind you about it. Finished things disappear. Unfinished things move in and start paying rent inside your head. Your brain has a strange habit. It lets go of completed stories but clings to open loops like its life depends on them. That email you still haven't answered. The book sitting on page 47 for the last 2 months. The conversation that ended awkwardly 3 years ago, but still shows up during random moments of silence. You tell yourself you're overthinking. Your brain thinks it's doing its job. This isn't weakness. It isn't lack of discipline. It's a psychological effect so powerful that it shapes your attention, your motivation, your anxiety, and sometimes your entire day without you noticing. Psychologists call it the Zeigarnik Effect. Once you understand it, a lot of your mental noise suddenly starts making sense. The story starts in the 1920s with a Soviet psychologist named Bluma Zeigarnik. She noticed something odd while sitting in a restaurant in Berlin. The waiters could remember huge orders with perfect accuracy while customers were still eating. But the moment the bill was paid, the details vanished almost instantly. Completed orders disappeared from memory. Incomplete ones stayed active. That observation turned into an experiment. Participants were asked to complete a series of simple tasks and puzzles. Some were allowed to finish. Others were interrupted halfway through. Later, when researchers asked participants what they remembered, they consistently recalled the interrupted tasks far better than the completed ones. Your brain hates unfinished business, not emotionally, mechanically. An incomplete task creates psychological tension. It's like your mind opens a tab in the background and refuses to close it until the job is done. The longer it stays open, the more attention it quietly consumes. Think about your browser right now. 1 tab? Fine. 5 tabs? Manageable. 50 tabs? Your laptop starts sounding like it's preparing for takeoff. Your brain works the same way. Every unfinished task becomes another open tab running silently in the background, draining processing power even when you're trying to focus on something completely different. This is why unfinished work feels heavier than finished work. Not because it's harder, because it's still active. It's also why procrastination feels so strange. People imagine procrastination as avoidance, but psychologically, it's often the exact opposite. You don't avoid the task. The task follows you everywhere. You postpone writing the report, but your brain keeps reminding you while you're watching Netflix. You delay studying for the exam, but suddenly every social media video feels slightly less enjoyable because somewhere in the background, your brain is whispering, you're supposed to be doing something else. The task never leaves. You just carry it around. This effect shows up in places you wouldn't expect. Streaming platforms know it. Notice how episodes rarely end after solving the main conflict. Instead, they introduce a new mystery right before the credits roll. A door opens. A secret gets revealed. Someone receives a phone call. Your brain suddenly needs closure. Congratulations, you're watching episode 2. Writers have used this trick for decades because unresolved stories are sticky. They create tension, and tension demands resolution. The same thing explains why you remember embarrassing moments with painful clarity. That argument where you thought of the perfect comeback 6 hours later. The text message conversation that suddenly stopped. The relationship that ended without explanation. Your brain treats emotional incompleteness exactly like unfinished work. It keeps revisiting the event because as far as it's concerned, the file is still open. This is why closure matters so much to people. Not because closure changes the past, because closure finally allows the brain to stop spending energy searching for an ending that isn't coming. The Zeigarnik Effect can become a trap, but it can also become a weapon. Productivity researchers discovered something interesting. Starting a task, even for 5 minutes, often creates enough psychological tension to make returning to it easier later. This is why the hardest part of exercise isn't the workout, it's putting on your shoes. The hardest part of writing isn't writing, it's opening the blank document. Once the task begins, your brain wants completion. Momentum starts doing work that motivation never could. This is why the just do 5-minute strategy works so well. 5 minutes sounds harmless enough to bypass resistance, but once the task is active, the Zeigarnik Effect starts pulling in the opposite direction. The brain that fought against starting suddenly becomes the brain that wants to continue. You can use this deliberately. If you're struggling with a project, Don't aim to finish it. Open the file. Write one sentence. Read one page. Solve one problem. Then stop if you want. Oddly enough, stopping after starting often increases the chance that you'll come back later because now the task exists as an open loop inside your mind. You have recruited your own psychology to work for you instead of against you. Of course, there is a darker side. Modern life is basically a factory for unfinished loops, unread notifications, partially watched videos, half-written messages, 30 browser tabs, 5 personal goals, 3 abandoned hobbies, 2 existential crises. Your brain was never designed to carry this many open files at once. No wonder so many people feel mentally exhausted before lunch. Sometimes the fatigue isn't coming from what you're doing. It's coming from everything you haven't finished yet. Maybe productivity isn't just about managing time. Maybe it's about managing open loops. Because attention is not an unlimited resource. Every unfinished thing takes a small bite out of it. The uncomfortable truth is that your mind is not haunted by the past. It's haunted by incompletion, the conversation you never had, the project you never started, the version of yourself you promised you would become someday. Your brain keeps returning because from its perspective, the story isn't over yet. And maybe that's the real question hiding underneath all of this. Which unfinished thing in your life is still quietly running in the background, waiting for you to either finish it or finally let it go? If this video made you think of something immediately, that's probably not an accident.